Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
There will now be a moment for silence prayer or meditation. Thank you very much. Please be seated.
Recording in progress.
May I remind delegates that rules, in particular sub-rule 21, 22, and 23 of Rule 103 shall apply in this sitting. Honorable delegates, I will now allow an opportunity to delegate to give notices of motion. Each is allowed 20 minutes. Sorry, not each. All of them combined. Otherwise, as a full speech will slip here. Delegates who wish to give notices of motion should raise their hands or use the raise hand function on the virtual platform. Each motions will be given 1.5 minutes. And the table staff will also monitor those that are on virtual platform as they raise their hands, and you will accordingly indicate to myself as such. And I have been given a list of all members who wishes to give notices of motions, and as well as those members who wish to give motions without notice. I'll start off with the notices of motion. I'll just go straight to Honorable Machobeni from Eastern Cape.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good day to you, good day to the members. Notice of motion, removal of colonial and apartheid statues. I rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters that Council in the next sitting debates the need for the removal of all colonial and apartheid statues, street names, and memorial bill that celebrates genocidal racist. These symbols of quest have not right to be in the sites of public significance and must be relegated to an apartheid and colonial museum where they can be observed with dishonor and contempt. I so move.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Is there any objections to the motion? I'm forward. Sorry about that. Okay, we have noted the motion that has been raised by the honorable member, and as such, it will be noted. The next one that we will receive is from Honorable Boshoff.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. I'm on the virtual platform. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move a motion that at its next sitting, this House debate the issue of food wastage by food outlets and explores effective, sustainable solutions for redistribution to those in need, as millions of South Africans face hunger daily, whilst tons of edible food are discarded. This should be seen by this House as not only a humanitarian imperative, but also an economic and environmental necessity and a potential tool to combat the cost of living crisis. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Boshoff. Your notice will be printed and be put on an order paper. Thank you so much. I'm told that Honorable Mananiso, she's on the virtual platform. I'm also inviting her to give the motion.
Well, Chair, I just want to bring to your attention or to table's attention, there are members that is still waiting to be let in on the virtual platform.
Thank you very much. Can we make sure that we allow members to join in? Whilst we still await them to join in due to these glitches, may I invite Honorable Feni to table the notice of motion? Over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I wish to table this motion of motion, Honorable Chairperson. Yes. Let me first take this opportunity to greet you, the Chief Whip of the NCOP, Honorable Minister and Deputy Minister, Honorable members of this distinguished August House, ladies and gentlemen, and all the protocol observed. Chairperson, in his wise word and wisdom of our former president, His Excellency Honorable Thabo Mvunyelwa-Mbeki, in reminding us of the hard road we've traveled as a nation, had this to say: today as a country, we keep an honorable silence about these ancestors of the generations that live.
Honorable Feni, I think there's a bit of a confusion here. We're still on notices of motion.
Apologies, Chairperson.
Okay. Do you have? Yes.
Yes.
Can you go through yours?
Yes. Yes, Chairperson, it is about the injustices, Chairperson, that have been encountered by the people of.
Please be mindful about time. Can you shoot straight to your notice?
Yes, Chairperson, the notice is about the injustices that have been encountered by the people of this country through the regime laws that have passed, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Feni. We will then receive that motion and accordingly be printed and be put on the order paper. I'm now inviting Honorable Mananiso to give the motion, notice of motion.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm not sure about the issue of the motion of
Oh, you don't have one?
notice. I don't have.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. I'm just following the list as is provided. I'm now inviting Honorable Pina.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to you and the rest of my colleagues. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move a motion that at its next sitting, that this House debates the role of labour unions in the building of the economy in the 7th administration. I so move.
Thank you very much. We have noted the motion and accordingly we'll have it printed in the next order paper. I'm affording Honorable Kennedy an opportunity to give his notice of motion.
Thank you, Chair. I rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters that in the next sitting, the House debates the impact of the slow pace of land reform in South Africa and how it affects the lives of the dispossessed and landless, especially the marginalized people of South Africa. As the willing seller, the willing buyer principle is ineffective in speeding up the land reform. I so move.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kennedy. We'll have it printed and be put on an order paper. I'm now inviting Honorable Skierkochel.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Chairperson. I rise on behalf of the Democratic Alliance. I hereby move a motion that in the next sitting, that this House debate the poor state of municipal sports facilities, theatres and art centres across South Africa in an effort to unlock and boost small town and rural economies, job creation and future sports stars of South Africa. I so move.
Thank you very much, Honorable Skiergel. We will have it printed and be put on the order paper. Our last speaker is Honorable Mokwele. I'm inviting you, Honorable.
No, thanks, Chairperson. Mine is the one without notice, not with notice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was the last name on my list. And I just want to ascertain as to whether are there any other members who still wish to put forward the notices of motions that were not on the initial list. One, two, three, gone. Honorable Billy.
Chairperson, for clarity, are we now moving to motion without notice?
No, I was just concluding the notices of motions. The speakers list was completed, so I was inviting for any member who still wish to do so. So we are now moving to the motions without notices. Did you raise your hands? Are you still on notices of motions? Over to you, Honorable Mokwena.
Thank you, Chair. I will rise on behalf of Umkhonto weSizwe Party to raise concerns over Nongoma local municipality, which is currently experiencing a severe administrative crisis, wherein there are simultaneous occupation of a municipal manager position by two individuals. This unprecedented situation has escalated to the point where municipal staff have been sent home early for safety concerns. Just for noting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We have noted indeed the notice of motion, and accordingly we'll have it printed on the order paper. Thank you so much. That was the last speaker on the notices of motion. I'm now proceeding in accordance with the order paper to the motions without notice. And again, I do have the speakers list in front of me. And in accordance with the speakers list, I'm inviting Honorable Inkosi Advocate Nonkonyan.
Chairperson and honorable members, good afternoon. I rise on behalf of the African National Congress that the Council 1 notes with great sadness the death of Justice James Nhlupeko Yekiso on the 24th of January 2025. At the time of his retirement, he was serving as a judge at the Western Provincial Division of the High Court of South Africa. To also note that after finishing his schooling at Fort Beaufort with top marks in English and isiXhosa, Judge Yekiso worked as a court interpreter. 3, further note that his job whetted his appetite to pursue his academic studies from BProg, LLB, and LLM, and majoring in constitutional law. It is worth mentioning that he was expelled at Fort Hare in 1973 with a banning that disqualified him from enrolling at another university. He was expelled during the BProg final year, and about a month before writing his final exam, he had no choice but to forfeit all the 4-year effort of his BProg studies and start from scratch by enrolling at University of South Africa. He finally completed his BProg in 1978 and employed and enjoyed the curious.
Honorable Nonkonyane, your time is up. I'm sorry.
I so move, Chair, on behalf of the African National Congress. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. May his soul rest in peace. Is there any objection to this motion without notice? And so agreed to. Thank you very much. I'm inviting Honorable Boshoff on a visual platform.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move without notice that this Council notes with concern the recent accident on 19 February 2025 along the infamous R540 between Leidenburg and Dahlstrom, where international tourists from the USA sustained serious injuries and required hospitalization. This tragic incident once again highlights the long-standing dangers of this vital route, which has been in severe disrepair for years, posing serious risks to motorists and damaging the economic prospects of local businesses and tourism. Further notes the growing frustration from residents, businesses, and road users who have repeatedly raised concerns about this road. The affected tourists have since indicated their unwillingness to return to South Africa, citing collapsing infrastructure as a major deterrent, an issue that undermines our international reputation and threatens the tourism sector, acknowledges that this road is a critical artery for businesses, farmers, and communities in the area, and while it has been transferred to SANRAL, the responsibility for safe functioning infrastructure still rests with the provincial government. Notes that we welcome SANRAL's commencement of rehabilitation work on this route, which will assist fellow travellers and restore confidence in this corridor. Finally, calls on this council to mandate that the province monitors the progress closely and ensures that
Honorable
the project...
Boshoff, I'm afraid your time is up.
I so move. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, can I put it before the House whether to adopt or object to the notice without motion? Motion without notice, sorry. No objection, and so agreed to. Thank you very much, honourable members. I'm now inviting Honourable Brett.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I hereby move without notice on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes that 1. The Victory for All Foundation was established in May 2003 by Mr. Jan Vos and his wife, Mrs. Astrid Vos, who relocated from the Netherlands to South Africa. 2. Since 2003, the foundation established the Noah's Ark Pre-Primary School, the King's College Primary School, the King's College High School, the Rainbow Centre, the only private school for disabled children in the Eastern Cape, the Rainbow Skills Centre, Rainbow Angels Care Centre, as well as 7 foster homes in the townships situated in Humansdorp and Jeffreys Bay in the Eastern Cape. 3, these institutions were created exclusively with the disadvantaged and poor communities of the Koga as beneficiaries. 4, all these institutions are housed in excellent buildings built by the foundation and are all equipped with modern equipment of international standard. 5, since 2003, Victory for All invested 175 million rands in the infrastructure of these institutions. 6, today the foundation feeds 300 to 350 children per day and employ 105 staff members, including teachers, teaching assistants, cleaners, carers, chefs, general workers, and administrators, all residing within the Koga. 7, the foundation is in the process of building a new high school in Jeffreys Bay to the value of 55 million rands, which
Your
will be
time is
completed.
up.
I so move that they be congratulated.
Honourable members, can I put the motion without notice for adoption or objecting? Agreed to. Thank you very much. I'm now moving to Honourable Medupi.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Honorable members of the House, I hereby move without notice on behalf of the African National Congress that the House notes with utmost concern the violation of ceasefire by the Israel government, which carried out extensive strides on the people of Palestine. Further notes that the House further notes that overturning of the 2 months long ceasefire by Israel is putting the release of hostage at risk. Further note that this attack by Israel has killed more than 400 Palestinians and wounded hundreds and more, making it the deadliest day in Gaza since November 2023. And this take opportunity to call on Israel government to respect the ceasefire and the resolution of International Criminal Court. So I move. Thank you very much, Honorable Modupi. Is there any objection to this motion? And so agreed to. Thank you very much. I'm now inviting Honorable Pili.
Chairperson, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby move without notice that this council notes the deadly floods which recently occurred in the past weeks in parts of the province of KwaZulu-Natal, which sadly killed approximately 11 people, which included 3 children in Lamontville, and more recently, a woman was swept away in a vehicle by raging floods and her body recovered later in Pinetown. Secondly, sends our deepest condolences to the families, relatives, and friends of all the deceased. Thirdly, calls upon the NCOP to immediately undertake the recommendation proposed in the 2022 Ad hoc Joint Committee on Flood Disaster Relief and Recovery report to finalize the establishment of the Joint Steering Committee on Climate Change. And lastly, calls upon the government, including local municipalities, particularly a eThekwini municipality, to urgently develop measures or steps to not only combat climate change, but also to mitigate floodings and improve stormwater management in an effort to increase urban resilience against extreme events. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Pili. Is there any objection? The motion is duly adopted. I'm now inviting Honorable Mabilo.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I hereby move without notice on behalf of the African National Congress that the House notes with great sense of appreciation the continued groundbreaking successes by the South African Police Services and other law enforcement agencies in intercepting and apprehending cash in transit criminal syndicates and other organized violent criminal syndicates over the recent past. 2, further notes that some of the encounters between the law enforcement agencies and these criminals have resulted in the cold-blooded killing of some of the suspects in the shootout with the police. And 3, acknowledges and commends the dedication and tireless work of the security agencies to direct significant resources and efforts to wage a concerted fight against crime and keep our communities safer. I so move, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mabilo. Is there any objection? The motion is duly accepted. We're now taking the last speaker on my list, Honorable van den Berg.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Freedom Front Plus, I hereby move that we recognize that on Thursday, the 13th of February this year, in the early morning, the village of Maiba in the Democratic Republic of the Congo was surrounded by gunmen from the Allied Democratic Forces, the ADF, a Ugandan Islamist group that came hunting for Christians. That we recognize that more than 70 people, men and women, elderly and children, were captured and marched off to their church in the nearby village of Kasanga, where they were tied down with their hands behind their backs and beheaded. That we further note that this murderous terrorist organization did this to desecrate a holy place and that it sparked very little reaction in the world. That this House further recognizes this as a clear act of religious war on Christians, and by recognizing this atrocity, observe a moment of silence as a tribute to these slaughtered brothers and sisters. Thank you. I so move.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection? The motion without notice is duly adopted. I'm now inviting members who were not on the speakers list, if they so wish to give the motions without notice, they may do so through the rise of their hands. Honorable Billy, you've been on my speakers list. You had a fair share. I'm just opening it up for those who have not been on the speakers list. I note Honorable Mukwili, Honorable Ndlovu, Honorable Sibande, as well as Honorable Mokwena. The last speaker would be the Deputy Chairperson of the House. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Chair, for the opportunity. Chair, on behalf of the African National Congress, I like to note the arrest of 10 employees of the South African Social Agency for their involvement in the SASSA card syndicate that is estimated to the value of 260 million. Furthermore, Chair, I'll further note that the suspect have been charged with more than 1,000 charges of theft, fraud, and contravention of the Cybercrime Act. And lastly, Chair, I want to take this opportunity to commend all the security agency, SASSA, for working tirelessly to make sure that the pitiless criminal whose heartless greed significantly harm community by stealing from the needy and ultimately having destructive impact on government program to support the well-being and the livelihood of the needy. I so move, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mukwili. Is there any objection? And so agreed to. Thank you very much, Honorable Ndlovu.
Thanks, Honorable House Chair. I hereby move without notice on behalf of the African National Congress that the Council notes that a Portuguese businessman has been rescued by a multidisciplinary team led by the Crime Intelligence Kidnapping Team in Western Johannesburg on Saturday, the 15th of March. Secondly, Chair, further notes that the businessman was kidnapped on Tuesday, the 11th of March, shortly after dropping an employee in Rulage by criminals who later demanded a ransom of his release. Thirdly, Chair, congratulate the police. We congratulate the police on their consistent arrest and on solving the kidnapping cases and express concern about the rising cases of kidnapping in South Africa. I so move.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ndlovu. Is there any objection? And so agreed to. I'm now inviting Honorable Sibande.
Chairperson, on behalf of the African National Congress, I hereby move without notice that the Council note that the South African senior soccer team will be engaged in a crucial World Cup qualifier against Lesotho on the 21st of March 2025. Also note that the match will be hosted at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium in Polokwane, Limpopo Province. Wish Bafana success in this crucial soccer matter, World Cup qualifier against Lesotho. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Sibande. Is there any objection? The motion is being duly seconded. Thank you very much. Honorable Mokwena.
Thank you, Chair. I rise on behalf of Umkhonto we Sizwe Party to submit a motion without notice. that the House notes the eviction of approximately 20 families from Guamajaiva farm in Greytown, KwaZulu-Natal on the 23rd of January 2025, that these families have resided on this farm for over 4 decades, claiming permission to settle on the land from the previous owner. We also wish to say the apparent disregard for the family's long-standing residency rights, potential land claims, and lack of alternative accommodation has exacerbated their economic and social vulnerability. We also move that we as the House advocate for the strengthening of land tenure rights for long-term residents of rural farms to prevent future disputes of this nature. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mokoena. Is there any objection? The motion is duly seconded. The last speaker would be the Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I rise on behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party, noting that on the 21st of March 1975, the first meeting of the IFP was held at Nzumela in KwaZulu-Natal. This year, the IFP will be celebrating 50 years of resilience, service, and integrity. This House remembers and commends the founder of the IFP, His Excellency Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, for his astute leadership and congratulate the IFP on its 50 years of service to the nation. I so move.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson. Is there any objection to the motion? The motion is duly adopted. Thank you very much. We are now moving to the next item on the order paper, which is the debate on human rights under the theme Enhancing Social Justice and Human Rights Culture. We do have the speakers list before us, and the first speaker on the list is Honorable Mananiso, who will open the debate for us. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, Honorable Acting Chief Whip of the Council, Honorable House, Honorable Chairpersons of the Select Committees, Honorable Delegates, and ladies and gentlemen. And I want to greet as well those who have joined us on the visual platform. As we celebrate 70 years of Freedom Charter, lest we forget that our Constitution and Chapter 2 of Bill of Rights clearly states that we are a nation with all equal rights for humanity, and we are the people. It is through multi-sectoral approach that we can restore hope and promote humanity and human dignity. Back to basics, human empowerment and development that is community-centric. We need to accelerate our efforts in responding to basic services, that is water and electricity, proper infrastructure, and access to quality education from cradle to grave. For as long as we have the excluded majority in the ownership of economy, land, property, and rights, we still have the struggle to continue. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, I want to start by saying that what we need to do as government, more especially as members of parliament, noting that we have adopted, or we have 12 languages in South Africa, there is a need to speed up using all those languages as we do our business, Chairperson, because language, that is the first step in terms of human rights. As long as we do our business using only English in majority, we must take note that we're leaving people behind. We must take note that people, they don't get to understand what is it that we are working with and what is it that they have to do, because every time we're using one dominant language. So I want to say to you, honorable members and South African, let us normalize using our indigenous language as we share information, as we educate and we do awareness in terms of human rights. Honorable Chairperson, I want to indicate to the House that there's a woman by the name of Dieketsen Diale, one of the social justice activists
once said, human rights are human rights, women are humans, so women and girls are due to the same fundamental rights, Honorable Chairperson, such as education, a life free of violence, a fair wage, or the vote. However, worldwide, there are many human beings denied the human rights they are entitled to, simply because they are human and girls. Not a single country in the world has yet achieved gender justice. In many places, Honorable Chairperson, women are risking their lives by speaking up to assert their rights. And I can attest to this, that each and every day, girls and women are actually living in fear. Honorable Chairperson, I want to as well mention one of the social activists who is the first president for women empowerment in Africa, Comrade Banda. When she was sharing the message in one of the webinars on the International Women's Day, she said something that is fundamental in terms of what were the women then fighting for. She indicated that the women discussions previously were about peace and bread. And peace and bread, Honorable Mabilo, it speaks about issues of economy. You would know the bread and butter issue, it's about umnot for a black person. So what Precious Panda said is that inclusion and representation in all aspects of life in the society, better working condition, better living condition, and safe spaces women must claim. And it's about time, I want to share this to women as we celebrate these human rights, that it's about time that we use the population of us as women in the country. We must stop this thing of speaking about Down syndrome, what we don't speak about, individual empowerment and taking each other along. Honorable Chairperson, we appreciate and acknowledge that today is better than yesterday. Hence, we are saying we must accelerate our actions in responding and confronting the barriers and contradictions. Honorable Chairperson, the importance of gender diversity in the workplace, we can no longer negotiate about. It's about time. Localizing lobbying and advocacy by starting in our communities in terms of teaching each and every woman in terms of what are their rights and as well, what is it that they can do as South African citizens is important. Honorable Chairperson, men must lead by example to promote human rights in their kingdoms, communities. In so doing, they must fundamentally create programs for human rights within African content of Ubuntu, Ubuntu, the nation. And that was actually shared by one of the honorable members, who is the member of the Contralesa, Honorable Nonkonyane, by saying that it's about time that men should come to the fore and lead the struggle in terms of human rights. Moral regeneration must be revived and reviewed as a strategical structure for social cohesion and community build. As the African National Congress, we believe in the nation, hence we can't compromise the issue of not speaking about racialism, sexism, and as well not speaking about the national democratic revolution. As a nation, we must rise together as one and acknowledge and appreciate more needs to be done by all, not the few. Today, Honorable Chairperson, I can tell you we just got the feedback from the DNA board in terms of the backlog in South Africa, and they have confirmed that so far there's zero backlog. And we believe that with such initiatives, it's a sign that there is an appetite and need to respond to constitutional issues of human rights. Honorable Chairperson, social justice and inequality are intertwined principles. Equality guarantees that everyone is equal before the law and has the right to equal protection and benefit of the law. Chairperson, social justice aims to ensure the fairness and equal opportunity for all. In reflecting on this on the eve of human rights today, it is very important that we note that in the Western Cape, there's too much of imbalances and inequalities, and maybe most of you, as you are flowing up and down, we sometimes look by the window and check in terms of the disparities that our people are subjected to. In the Western Cape, in the Cape Flats, The community is known in the province filled with stark contrast and differences. We see this as we look out of the window, as I said, as we drive from the airport, where we see shacks, informal settlement, and as we continue as well journeying, we encounter many things that are so unethical and unhuman. And I want to say, as we speak in this day about human rights, let's make sure that there are no different environments while we are in the same province. We further want to say, Chairperson, as we debate in this platform, that it is important that we are noting that when you get to Lavender Hills, Mitchell's Place, and Manenberg, there are the areas the tourists do not often see. And our people there are living in dyad. These are the areas divided by race, class, poverty, and inequality. Interestingly, Chairperson, these are also areas rife with crime and gangsterism. So we need to ask ourselves, what is it that is happening and who's doing what and who's not doing what? Recent news article highlights how areas like Lavender Hill, Ottery are under attack by gangsters, how drug abuse and the fight for territory is eating away at our communities and keeping those communities living in fear. We are past the days of lockdown, and yet Lavender Hill has been under lockdown due to gangsterism. So I want to employ to all of you as members of Parliament, while we are here in Western Cape, there's something that we need to do collaboratively. As we celebrate Human Rights Day on Friday, we have to take a moment to reflect on the basic human rights of these communities who are being ravaged by gangs and guns. Women, children, and youth are the ones who are suffering the most at the hand of gangsters. They live in fear on a daily basis. Gangsterism attack the very fabric of our society, families and communities, holding family hostage in their own homes. Negatively, safely, security, and access to basic human rights. Our Bill of Rights guarantees all citizens several rights, including but not limited to the right to life and freedom of movement, freedom and security of the person, the right to education, religious activities, healthcare, and list can go on. On the eve of Human Rights Day in the province, what are those communities celebrating? They are not celebrating, they are mourning for their children that have been shot, for their communities, life they don't have, for the education they are not allowed to have. It is a known fact that gangs often target children and our youth to become gangster members from a young age. Gangs are robbing them of their rights to basic education, to the rights of children as enshrined in our Constitution, to human dignity, access to healthcare, housing, and every citizen's right to privacy. The very same Constitution provides for SAPS, law enforcement to protect our citizens, and sets up Chapter 9 institution to protect our citizens' human rights even more. The interplay between the security of the person and justice for communities seem to be pipe dream in a province riddled with inequalities and gangs. How is it that in predominantly white affluent areas, tourists can go and party at bars, but those same tourists cannot enter other areas due to gangsterism? What are the differences between areas like Nyanga, Camps Bay, Lavender Hill, and why are all human rights not equal in these different areas in the province? On the coast and Saldanha Bay, why is Middle Post so impoverished that a child as young as 6, just starting school, would go missing and year later? We still don't know whether she is alive or where she is. Honorable Chairperson, I want to acknowledge all the law enforcement agencies for displaying as well their work that they are doing that we didn't know about. But because of this case of Jocelyn, at least we were exposed that they are hard at work. Honorable Chairperson, gender and sexual offenses are human rights. Our country is affected daily with increased level of violent crime against women, children, and vulnerable groups. This year marks 18 years since the enactment of the Criminal Procedure Sexual Offences Related Matters Act 32 of 2007. Chairperson, one would want to state that the President in the State of the Nation address highlighted, we have promulgated the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Act, established a national structure to oversee a coordinated response to the crisis. There are now 65 Dituzela care centers across the country. Out of 52 districts in our country, 44 have GBV shelters. All police stations in the country have victims-friendly services, and another 16 sexual offences court will be established in the next year financial year. This shows that, Chairperson, the President really wants to speak and deal with these issues that are unconstitutional and are abnormal but seen as normalities in our daily lifestyle. Honorable Chairperson, in February 2025, quarterly crime statistics, the Minister of Police highlighted that although they registered an overall reduction on contact crimes against women, they were deeply concerned by the increase in attempted murder cases against children 0 to 17 years. Rape cases have increased in KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, and the Free State, whereas other provinces have recorded decreases. So there's a need, Chairperson, that at least we need to have provincial programs where we can learn in terms of the best model from other provinces on how do they do it in terms of dealing with crime. Honorable Chairperson, I want to say in this platform that it is about time that human rights are taken as human rights, nothing else. We have in our play to use the Constitution in terms of checking that we are on course in understanding what South Africa comes from and where we are and where we are going. Honorable Chairperson, in addressing crimes of this nature, we have to reflect on the stark realities that exist within our country and provinces. We have a call on SAPS, law enforcement agencies, and communities to work together to dismantle the strongholds of gangsterism, drug addiction, organized crime, and as well gender-based violence and femicide. While we celebrate Human Rights Day on Friday, let us ensure that everyone lives equally with human dignity in safe environment and is able to access all their rights as enshrined in the Constitution. These rights must and should be equal in Bishop's Court, Lavender Hill, Middle Post, and Nyanga. All communities deserve to have equality before the law, freedom, and access to justice equally. Until every woman and every child can walk and move freely in all communities within a province. We are not free until the mourning in these communities are over. Without the threat of more violence, our communities are not free. On the eve of celebrating Human Rights Day, let us address the threat of poverty, inequality. Let us strive for social justice and remove the barriers of inequalities in every community, and let us restore the rights and dignity to our communities on an equal basis. Let us ensure that every woman and child is able to access and realize the full protection on their human rights as embodied in our Constitution. Honorable Chairperson, I want to remind South African people and as well members of this Parliament that it is important that we need to revive moral regeneration program because we know what was the objective and why it is important that we should have such structures, more especially in our municipality. We want to say to those who are in government in our local sphere that it is important that they include on their district development model issues that speaks to human rights in terms of moral regeneration, in terms of ensuring that a girl child is being taken along, in terms of ensuring that a boy child as well is not left behind. Honorable Chairperson, I want to speak in this house, in this August house, that as members of this house, we must not look away when everybody needs us to ensure that 365 days, 24/7, they are free from all these barriers and contradictions. Honorable Chairperson, I want to acknowledge and appreciate all the NGO, all sectors, all FPOs and businesses and government's department that are making sure that the NSP is being realized, that Aluta Continua is not yet uru. Let us all put forth and forge a struggle in ensuring that we liberate a girl child and as well we liberate women. However, to those that knows that they are still trapped on hate speech for the LGBTQIA plus society, please know that if you still have issues about that, you really don't belong in South Africa, because South Africa belongs to all who lives in it. Leave them to live their lives and enjoy the privileges of being South Africans without any hassles or without any violence, because we know, Honorable Nonkwanyane, some of the people, they still trapped on culture, beliefs. That is why they don't want to speak anything that has to do with LGBTQIA plus society. But I want to say it's about time that everything is not about you, it's about the nation. The nation is all. The nation is about diversity. The nation is about human rights. And the nation is about all of us working together to ensure that we build the South Africa that we want to live in. Honorable Chairperson, I want to thank the ANC as well for appointing me to deliberate on these topical issues as a social activist, as a young woman who understands that as women, we still have a long way to walk. However, we want to note that today is better than yesterday, and we are hoping for a better tomorrow. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mananiso. I'm now proceeding with the speakers list. The next speaker is Honorable Billy.
The Honorable Chairperson, the honorable members, and fellow South Africans. This week marks a solemn occasion, 65 years since the Sharperville massacre, when apartheid police brutally gunned down 69 peaceful black protesters. More than 180 others were wounded, and tragically, over 50 of those victims were women and children. This was not just an act of violence. It was an assault on the fundamental right of freedom and equality. The protesters in Sharperville, armed with nothing but courage, stood against an oppressive regime that sought to deny them their dignity. Their sacrifice serves as a powerful reminder that the rights we enjoy today were not given freely. They were won through struggle, resilience, and sacrifice. Yet, Chairperson, despite the progress we've made, injustice in our communities persist. Like many South Africans, I've experienced firsthand the devastating reality of human rights violations. In 2011, I was brutally assaulted by eThekwini Metro police officers, left unconscious while those entrusted with upholding the law fled the scene. I felt powerless, unprotected, and betrayed by the very institution meant to safeguard our rights. Like other South Africans, we have seen the South African Police Service fail us time and again. The 8 SAPS VIP Protection Unit members tasked with protecting the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, mercilessly assaulted innocent civilians on a public highway. Their actions were not just lawless. They were a shocking display of state-sanctioned brutality met with little to no accountability. We have witnessed the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, deliberately align our country with regimes that violate human rights. The President and the ANC's support for Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine has not only damaged our global standing, but also placed us on a wrong side of history. This reckless foreign policy decision has contributed to widespread human suffering, displacement, and loss of innocent lives, including children. In this regard, we welcome Minister Leon Schreiber's latest decision to grant visa-free access to Ukraine's diplomatic, official, and service passport holders. This is a clear indication, through a dear minister, of solidarity with the people of Ukraine who share a historical connection with South Africa's own apartheid struggle and the respect for human rights. President Ramaphosa's attendance at the contested inauguration of Mozambique's President Daniel Chapo, despite ongoing and humanitarian crisis in Mozambique, is yet another example of South Africa turning its back on democracy and human rights. Chairperson, while these moments have been disheartening, they are not the full story of our country. There have been times when I felt immense pride, moments when South Africa stood firm in defense of human dignity, both at home and abroad. These are the moments we must build upon. Here at home, Chairperson, we must close the gap between the have and the have-nots. Today, it is estimated that about 30.3 million South Africans, which is about 55% of the population, live below the national upper poverty line. About 13.8 million are trapped in food poverty. This level of suffering is not inevitable. It is a direct result of corruption, mismanagement, and cadre deployment, which have crippled economic growth and service delivery in our country. The previous ANC-dominated government failed millions of South Africa. But we know we have a chance to chart a different path, colleagues. The DA is committed to building a South Africa where the principles of equality, access, participation, rights, and diversity are not just words, but lived realities. South Africa, having emerged from the struggle of apartheid and the unwavering support of international community, has a moral responsibility to champion human rights across the globe. We cannot turn our blind eye to crimes against humanity, whether they occur in Ukraine, Zimbabwe, Sudan, or anywhere in the world. We cannot afford to align ourselves with regimes that trample on human dignity, violate the rule of law, and suppress fundamental freedoms. South Africa, the government of national unity, must redefine its foreign policy to reflect on the following: a firm commitment to human rights, both domestically and globally; zero tolerance to governments or for governments that violate constitutionalism and the rule of law; a foreign policy that prioritizes democracy, economic growth, and the international cooperation, which is everything that the DA stands for. The DA will not waver in our stance. We will continue to advocate for a South Africa that stands firm against tyranny, corruption, and injustice, both at home and abroad, honorable members. Chairperson, social justice is not just a luxury. It is a necessity. It is a fundamental part of the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, an international blueprint for peace, prosperity, and human rights. We must support this agenda, not just in words, but in action. The DA remains committed to a South Africa where every citizen is afforded the dignity, rights, and opportunities that they deserve. A South Africa that stands tall on the world stage, not as an enabler of authoritarian regimes, but as a true champion of freedom, democracy, and justice. That is all what the DA stands for. Let us not betray the sacrifices of our past. Let us honor them by ensuring that the principles of freedom and equality are never taken for granted. I thank you.
Honorable delegates, we are graced today by the presence of two students from Glenwood House to observe the proceedings. We have in our midst Iya Kuze as well as Tristan Greig. And would like to take this opportunity and thank them for being part of our sitting. I'm now proceeding to the next. I'm now proceeding to the next speaker, Honorable Fanny.
Honorable Chairperson, Whip of the NCOP, in his absence, honorable members of this August House, our distinguished guests have been highlighted by Honorable Chairperson. Umzwenkosi, kuba kaloku singabantu bazo. I greet you all. It is in his words and wisdom of our former president, His Excellency, Honorable Thabo Mvunyelwa-Mbeki, in reminding us of our hardship and the hard road we've traveled as a nation. He had this to say, I quote, "Today as a country, we keep an audible silence about these ancestors of the generations that live, tearful to admit the horror of former deed, seeking to obliterate from our memories a cruel occurrence which, in its remembering, should teach us not and never to be inhuman again." It is critical when we are commemorating a human rights month to always be reminding ourselves of who we are and where we are going. Today, Honorable Chairperson, is exactly a day or so towards the 25th of March, which is the 65th commemoration of 1960 Sharpeville and Utnik. Today is called Career Kalanga Massacre, in which 60 unarmed and defenseless people were cowardly shot and brutally murdered by the then apartheid South African police, and approximately 180 innocent people were wounded. Their only sin was a peaceful demonstration against the introduction of past law against the black majority of the white, by the black majority, which is against the black majority by the white minority regime, the system that dictated where the large black majority would live, work, and die. Chairperson, it is not an incident of history that even today in our beloved country, you have economic activities dominated by a minority of a few white males who own and live on the main domains of economic activities against the poor black majority. Yet a deliberate reactionary spatial design that is no different from the old apartheid criminal design. We see what is currently happening, where you have the other side, which is totally poor. Majority of the people who are living on that side are the black majority. This side that is untouchable is the side where a few by the minority still living, and they do not want to see any kind of reconciliation. That is why you are having people even today who are still under the suffering. Chairperson, they design the laws. We have their origins here in their so-called Cape Colony in 1760, when the movement of slaves between urban and rural areas were regulated. Slaves were forced to carry passes from their masters, which system was subsequently extended to the whole country and further entrenched in 1945 by passing of the Native Consolidated Act. The 1952 abolition of the Passes Act made it compulsory for every male African to carry a reference book. In further entrenching their brutality and inhumanity, in 1960, the apartheid government introduced the Native Amendment Act, which extended the laws to African women, our mothers, wathinta abafazi, wathinta imbokotho zokufa. You strike a woman, you strike a rock, you will die. In commemorating Human Rights Month, masimbulele urhulumente okhokelwa yi-African National Congress, nabantu bonke baseMzantsi Afrika, the United Nations, and our friends across the globe. We will never be shy. We will never hide our gratefulness to the countries that supported our struggle to fight against the draconian regime, which continues even today to undermine our efforts of uniting this beloved country, a nation-building country. Few individuals, they feel that they do not belong to this nation. They even go out, spread lies about what is currently happening in this country. We are not going to keep quiet about that. We have a constitution with a Bill of Rights that guarantees all citizens the right to equality before the law. We carry only one identity document today. It's something that we must be celebrated when we are making this commemoration, not to listen and not to be deterred by those who are anti-progress, those reactionaries who do not want to see our people progressing. The ANC chooses reconciliation over anarchy, as this can be attested by the people of Bishop's Court, who were forcefully removed from their land of birthright by the apartheid regime here in Cape Town's upmarket suburbs because of their race and class, are a living testimony of the struggle led by the people of South Africa under the leadership of African National Congress, which have they finally been managed to be reinstated to their own land, and their houses will be finally built, though it might have taken them 20 years of an unwavering struggle to be reinstated to their land of birth. The government of the reactionary DA lost 2 cases and an appeal as a further attempt to continue with the agenda, their forerunners, that they continued against our people. So the people of Bishop's Court today are a living example and testimony of that. Still, the same government of Democratic Alliance continues to reject our people because they believe that they have places that they are untouchable to a certain race and class. So we are celebrating their victory also, and we are looking forward to ensuring that they are getting dignified places to stay. Chair, social justice is about access to land, access to housing, clean water, sanitation, electricity, social security, health and education. The Basic Education Amendment Act, which is the Bella Act, the Appropriation Act, which made us to see number of people lying again, going across the street, demobilizing the progress that have been made by this government, is a testament of the ANC unwavering commitment of ensuring that the doors of learning are just and not to discriminate our children. The basis of race, language, and socio-economic status. We remain committed to implement this act and ensuring that our children have access to early childhood development, which will ensure that all children can read, not only read, but understand all the languages by the age of 10 years. As I conclude, Chair, let me quote the words of our serving struggle icon, Oliver Tambo, who stated the following: "Comrades, you might think it is very difficult to wage a liberation struggle. Wait until you are in power. I might be dead by then. At that stage, you will realize that it is actually more difficult to keep power than to wage a liberation war. People will be expecting a lot of services from you. You will have to satisfy the various demands of the masses of our people. In the process, be prepared to learn from other people's revolution. Learn from the enemy, but don't do according to their own ways, because their own ways are the ways that are putting us back to where we do not want to go." But Chair, further, before I sit down, it is very critical, much important that we remember that there was a movement, the so-called cattle killing movement, where a young child called Nongause was used by the regime in ensuring that the Black nation, our people continue to be divided, and the regime continue to foster its own ways of its own evil ways. Even today, we have warned number of those generation of Nongause where they are speaking against the will of their people, representing the interest of the white minority, against land, against education, against prosperity. We see that we must ask ourselves, where is Mazibuko, Lindiwe Mazibuko, which has been the champion? Where is my money, which has been the champion? And even today, we see some of those who are going to fall on the same gallows by the same white regime led by the Democratic Alliance. They are going all over the world, going to Elon Musk. They do not want to see the prosperity of this country under the leadership of current African National Congress. But I still have some few minutes, Chairperson. I want to invite them again to relook upon themselves to see if they are serving the purpose, to see if they are serving the interest of the majority of this country. They must go out of this August House and look around as to what is currently happening. They will never afford to stay in these affluent areas because they are being regarded as insubordinate to their principles. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
On the podium, through the virtual platform, I'm inviting Honorable Ngongo, who is the MEC from Eastern Cape, MEC for Sports, Recreation, Arts and Culture. Over to you, MEC.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Greetings to you, the Deputy Chairperson of the Council and the Chief Whip of the NCOP, the SALGA representatives present, House Chair and permanent delegates, the ministers, deputy ministers, premiers and MECs present, fellow South Africans, receive our warm revolutionary greetings on behalf of our Honorable Premier Lubabalo Oscar Mabuyane and the people of the Eastern Cape, the province of the legends. It is our great honor to be afforded an opportunity to debate in this august house under a profound theme, enhancing social justice and human rights culture. Siliphondo lengqwele ke sithi inkosi zonke mazole ngoba izicaka zizolile siyacamagusha ukwenjeni. Honorable Chairperson, maniqale ngelithi umonakalo wona mkhulu futhi kuyakubonakala ukuba amanxeba la sawavala ngesizibe esicekeceke akakapholi asemanzi kwaye ingxelerha ziyagcwala. For us to enhance social justice, we need to have a deep understanding and appreciation of the effects of the era that we come from. That people went to school and got master's degrees in how to dispossess us of our land, how to exploit us, how to divide us, and make us to hate each other. Honorable Chair, we need to also understand that we are dealing with an institutionalized legacy of poverty, a very divided and unequal society, indoctrination of inferiority complex, hopelessness, social stagnation, and a very angry society in most parts of our country, including the Eastern Cape province. This is only a prognosis, Honorable Chair. We still need specialist doctors to give us a proper diagnosis and prescribe appropriate medication for us. This is how deep our problem is. Kulapho ke, Honorable Chair, ifike icinge khona nani zinkokheli bubunzulu bamanxeba. Kuyafuneka ke rhoqo sihambe sikhumbuzane. Coming back to the theme, Honorable Chair, as South Africa commemorates Human Rights Day, we are afforded a vital moment to reflect on the profound journey towards a society rooted in equality, dignity, and social justice. This year's theme, Enhancing Social Justice and Human Rights Culture, strikes a particularly resonant chord in us, people of a province rich in history and promise, yet still grappling with the remnants of socioeconomic disparities and systematic inequalities. Human Rights Day is a reminder of the sacrifices made by countless individuals in the fight against apartheid, particularly the events of Sharpeville in 1960, where peaceful protests were met with brutal repression. Today, as we celebrate this day of remembrance, we must likewise recommit ourselves to the advancement and protection of the most vulnerable in our society, women, children, the elderly, and the LGBTQIA+ community. The brutal killings that occur in our province are one of the many features of a wounded society that has not healed from a history of humiliation and ills of the past. In the Eastern Cape Province, Honorable Chair, where communities often feel the brunt of historical neglect, it is paramount that we continue to aspire a governance model that is truly people-centered. A model that prioritizes the upliftment and protection of marginalized groups as a fundamental pathway to holistic community development. By embedding human rights within our collective efforts, we cultivate an administration that is not only accountable, but responsive to the needs and rights of all citizens. Our government, Honorable Chair, recognizes that political freedom without economic freedom is meaningless. A person who cannot find work, who cannot provide for their family, who goes bed hungry, is not truly free. Thus, the President, His Excellency Tata Cyril Ramaphosa, has made a clarion call to this government to prioritize job creation through sustainable economic policies. As such, in the Eastern Cape, we continue with the rollout infrastructure development projects, state-of-the-art hospitals, magnificent bridges, and a particular focus in agriculture and the digital economy. We are one of the leading provinces in restoring our traditional names of our towns and restoring dignity and our identity, Honorable Chair. Nangoku sizokube sisekariyerha ukuyokubhiyozela imini yethu yokuhlonitshwa kwamalungelo ethu ngoLwesihlanu, the 21st of March, 2025. We acknowledge and appreciate the signing of appropriation bill, of land bill and the NHI and all other progressive policies that seeks to redress ills of our past and forge social justice for our people, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, Kanzawiyeka, the time for radical change is now. The social justice is not just a privilege, it is a right. And it is our responsibility as leaders to ensure that the most vulnerable among us are not left behind. We must act decisively and with urgency. We stand at a crossroads. We either act boldly now or we betray the sacrifices of our struggle heroes. Let this Human Rights Day be a call to action. Let us commit to not just talking about justice, but delivering it in jobs, in homes, in schools, in hospitals, and in the everyday lives of our people. Maswathobe, Honorable Chair, swahlambe lamanxeba in everything that we do. Sonzakele, kodwa, xa singenza kakuhle, sichebane thina induma sizophila kwaye the African National Congress-led government in the Eastern Cape is working towards that. Honorable Chair, history will judge us not by our words, but by what we do. So let us rise to the occasion. Let us build a province, a country where human rights are not a dream, but a reality for all. Diabulela, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable MEC. We now move to the next speaker, and that's the Honorable Siwisa. From the Economic Freedom Fighters, you have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Chairperson. Chairperson, let me start by sending greetings to the Commander-in-Chief, President of the most progressive organization, President Julius Sello Malema, entire leadership and ground forces of the EFF. Further greet the marginalized masses of South Africa who still find themselves experiencing inequalities in the so-called democratic state. Further extend my invite to the people of Mfuleni municipality to the Sharpeville commemoration, which will be held at Lomodem on the 21st of March, 2025, an event that will be addressed by the only Commander-in-Chief, President Julius Sello Malema. Chairperson, we are gathered here again to debate on human rights with a focus on enhancing social justice and human rights culture, a day which is observed in South Africa and every year on the 21st of March. This day, which commemorates the anniversary of the events which occurred in Sharpeville in 1960, where 69 people died and 180 were wounded when police fired on a peaceful crowd that gathered in protest against racist pass laws which segregated Africans from European settlers and determined where Africans can be and at what time. It is an important date in South Africa, Deputy Chairperson, a day which really should be renamed to Sharpeville Day, as a painful reminder of what the struggle for emancipation meant to those who came before us, and as a reminder of how far the current regime has strayed from those objectives. Deputy Chairperson, the EFF has stood here and on many platforms and rejected the name Human Rights Day to commemorate this day, and has instead made a call for this day to be called its rightful name, Sharpeville Day. Calling this day Human Rights Day distorts the history and washes down the events of the fateful day when the racist apartheid regime shot innocent, unarmed people with hundreds maimed and injured and scarred for life. Deputy Chairperson, today's theme for debate is enhancing social justice and human rights culture, a theme which seeks to acknowledge the importance of relevance of human rights in our everyday life. However, the question that therefore needs to be addressed is, has South Africa overcome the social injustices since the birth of democracy? Unfortunately, Deputy Chairperson, the answer is no. What is social justice when our people still experience racial discrimination in the workplace, schools, and the society in general? In the agricultural sector, African commercial farmers in Limpopo are deliberately marginalized and excluded from key export markets and are denied economic opportunities necessary to grow and succeed. Thus, despite them producing highly quality crops and meeting all the necessary market requirements, there is no social justice to speak of when the produce of citrus farmers in that province are not treated the same as that of their white counterparts. An exclusion that is a direct result of a system designed to protect white farmers and keep black farmers economically suppressed. In the educational space, learners in predominantly white schools are still racially profiled due to the straightness of their hair. Girls are not allowed to wear their hair naturally and are forced to straighten it with their indigenous languages suppressed. Here in Cape Town just last year, there were reports of black learners being auctioned to bidders, a racial prank played by school children. That is a direct result of a society still struggling with transformation and is failing to address white hegemony. Society in general, Deputy Chairperson, is not spared from injustice. The LGBTQIA+ community is the most affected within our own societies. Teenagers are being targeted for homophobic killings based on their sexual preferences. Homophobia has been normalized. We know this is to be true as just last year, a homophobic video of a DA member of parliament, Ronaldo Hose and Roman Kabanek, resurfaced individuals who have in the past been accused of not only being homophobic, but of being racist too. Young girls are also still seen as burdens and are still subjected to be married to ease the financial burden of families. There are still reports of ukutwala cases in rural areas of provinces such as the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. In some cases, the girls' families accept arrange these marriages. This is an act championed by those who are tasked to protect the minor. With some girls being exposed to sleeping with older men to assist the survival of the family. All this happens despite the fact that there is a Bill of Rights and the Constitution that lays out the duty to protect the rights of all who live within the boundaries of South Africa. Our people face inequalities on a daily basis, inequalities which are a constant reminder to our people that they are seen as inferior. Access to quality education is still a problem. Lack of relevant teaching and learning material in previously disadvantaged schools has become a norm. Many schools in the Northern Cape, Deputy Chairperson, had a difficulty to start the year as they didn't receive their school feeding scheme money. The Provincial Department of Education simply ignored requests to solve the challenges faced by many schools. They responded to reports of discrimination against African educators in white privileged schools. Justice system is also not spared from this. Victims of GBV find themselves being victimized by the justice system to failure of not apprehending suspects. Suspects are released on bail irrespective of whether they have outstanding cases or not. Many of these cases involve minors that are traumatized by seeing their perpetrators roaming the streets the very next day. The majority marginalized Africans in this country are subjected to crimes committed against them, and only a few are prosecuted. There is no real social justice to speak of in this DA-led regime, Deputy Chairperson, when people are deprived of quality health care, quality education, access to clean water, access to housing. Social justice and human rights need to be seen as one component where the government addresses injustices by applying the Bill of Rights. It should not be seen as a tool of privilege for minority few, but rather be utilized to ensure that all benefit from it. Deputy Chairperson, we can also never speak about social injustices and leave out the issue of land. The unequal access to land and resources leads to poverty and limited opportunities, especially for the marginalized majority. Lack of access to land creates a cycle of poverty. It limits the ability to improve living conditions and denial to participate in the economy of the country. No access to right to land and natural resources is a socio-economic discrimination. We need to have systems in place to address the above. We can all agree that on paper, we have the best constitution, Deputy Chairperson, but does it assist the vulnerable or does it protect the rich? Does it serve its purpose across, irrespective of race, gender, class, or region, or religion, or does it protect those with the means to hire the best legal representative to fight their cases? We need to advocate for economic inclusion. For this to happen, the deprived masses need access to the land for them to make their contribution in the economy of the country. Further, to alleviate their families from poverty. All citizens, Deputy Chair, need to receive services from quality education to quality health, care, running water, and housing. Address systems of inequality through access to education, with the main purpose of employment, access to legal bodies. Above all, promote respect for human rights. Comrades and fellow fighters, we must never forget where we come from. Many sung and unsung heroes died fighting for equality of the marginalized. We are made to believe here today that there are human rights in South Africa. Yet every day we fight inequalities within the system and within the society. It is only through the intervention of the economic freedom fighters that our society can stand a chance to combat crime and corruption and the scourge of gender-based violence, fight for the rights of workers and farmers, and strengthen our criminal justice. May we forever keep the memory of the people of Sharpeville in our hearts and never forget the greatest sacrifice that made for our liberation. Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Suisa. We now move to the next honorable member, and that is Honorable Mokoena from the MKP. Honorable member, you have 9 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. March 21, 1960 is one of the most painful yet important days in our history. A day where 69 unarmed South Africans were killed in Sharpeville for simply demanding their dignity. We must remember their courage, but most importantly, we must continue their fight. We cannot allow their deaths to be in vain. We must keep pushing for dignity, equality, justice for every South African. Honorable Chairperson, respected members, and fellow South Africans, today we gather to remember Social Justice and Human Rights Day. While we reflect on how far we've come, we must also face the truth about how much further we still need to go. Many South Africans still suffer from the same injustices that the people of Sharpeville fought against. If we truly want to celebrate freedom and equality, we must be honest about what we have failed and where we have failed. Land is not just soil. Land is about identity, dignity, and justice. The MK Party has said this before, and we will say it again. The land that was taken without compensation must be returned without compensation. Dignity cannot be negotiated in this regard. Land is not just a resource, it is power. The land was stolen from Black South Africans during apartheid, and that theft has shaped the way our economy works today. Until we address the land question, we cannot claim to have achieved any true equality. It is easy to talk about unity and the rainbow nation when you haven't had to live through the storm. Apartheid wasn't just a system, it was a plan to keep people apart and create a deep, lasting inequality. Apartheid affected every part of our lives, where we lived, where we worked, who we married, and even where we went to school. We cannot pretend that everything is okay when millions of South Africa are still living in poverty as a result. To build a country of human rights, we must start with our constitution. It is often praised as one of the best in the world, and in many ways it is. But we must ask, can we really call our constitution progressive when it avoids naming apartheid? The word apartheid does not even appear in our constitution. We talk about conflicts of the past, but that is not enough. Let's call it what it is: colonialism, dispossession, genocide, apartheid. The Constitution should face these truths directly. If we are serious about equality, the Constitution must confront our past. If we don't deal with the damage caused by it, we cannot build the future we want. The MK Party continues to call for an amendment of the Constitution that explicitly names apartheid and colonialism. We are not asking for revenge, we are asking for justice. To create a country of real equality, we must first recognize and heal the wounds of our past. We must also be honest about the state of our economy. A sudden VAT increase by the so-called GNU is like spitting on the face for millions of South Africans that are struggling to get by. The economy is still controlled by small, rich people, and the ANC is happily helping them move along. How can we talk about freedom if most South Africans don't have access to the things they need to live a dignified life, like jobs and proper health care? True social justice is not just about political rights. It is about economic rights. Economic freedom means access to land, good jobs, education, healthcare. And without these things, we can never say every South African has true freedom. And it's time for us to take over this government and confront the challenges head on. So as the MK party, the government in waiting, we stand for all South Africans, a South Africa where land is returned to its rightful owners, where the Constitution truly reflects the history of our struggle. We believe in a South Africa where every citizen can access dignity, equality, opportunity, and jobs. We will not accept a system that continues to fail our people. GNU, your time is up. The MK party is ready to take action and fix all your mistakes. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next member to debate is the Honorable Briet from the Freedom Front Plus. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy Chairperson. Deputy Chair, on 21 March 1960, South Africa and the world had their eyes on Sharpeville. Official stats say that 69 protesters were killed and 180 more were injured. Most recent research puts this figure much higher. Today, almost 65 years after this tragic day, South Africa commemorates Human Rights Day, reflecting on the sacrifices made, all whilst being under 31 years of ANC rule. Corruption, mismanagement, and abuse of power have betrayed the hopes of those who have bled for justice. The questions that beg to be asked are: what human rights have we gained, and what human rights have we had to give up? Has South Africa simply traded one oppressive regime for another? Here's my take on the matter, taking into consideration one human right, but arguably a very important one. During the launch of National Water Month, Minister Majordena boasted that under ANC rule, access to water services has increased from 60% in 1994 to approximately 90% today. While this all sounds like a wonderful success story, the reality on the ground tells us something different. In November of 2024, the South African Human Rights Commission released a damning report on its inquiry into the disastrous state of service delivery in the Free State. To say that the findings were alarming would be putting it too mildly. Amongst others, the report highlighted the following facts. After 31 years of ANC rule, the Free State still bears the same shameful distinction of having the highest number of bucket toilets in the country, a blatant violation of basic human dignity and a severe health crisis. A staggering 16 out of 19 municipalities in the Free State failed to provide drinking water that meets minimum biological standards, leaving thousands without access to clean and safe water. This is an unforgivable breach of basic human rights. The Free State has seen 11 municipalities crippled by severe delays, gross mismanagement, and subpar quality in water and sanitation projects, pushing already vulnerable communities into deeper despair and worsening their suffering. In Mangaung, the metro, the relentless sewage spills have caused widespread respiratory illnesses, violating the right of sanitary environments for school children who are forced to wade through contaminated sewage to reach their classes. In Machabeng, where I am today, the municipality was found in contravention of Section 10, Section 24(1)(b), Section 152(1)(b) of the Constitution, and Section 28(1) of NEMA for failing to adequately address chronic sewage spills that has led to closures of schools. Between March 21 and June 23, the Free State also had 205 service delivery protests, 69 of which were directly tied to water issues. These protests serve as a dark testimony of the deepening frustration and desperation over the state's blatant disregard for citizens' rights. In Maloti Apofong, allegations surfaced of individuals being paid for water transport services that were never delivered. This level of incompetence and mismanagement only adds insult to injury for communities already suffering from neglect and deprivation. How can the ANC, with any sense of moral clarity, celebrate its so-called advancements in human rights when 21 years into our hard-won freedom, millions still lack access to the most basic necessities? Instead of congratulating itself, the ANC-led government must face reality and urgently step up to fulfill its duty to the people of South Africa, ensuring true human rights, dignity and safety for all. The government must act now to tackle South Africa's water and sanitation crisis. This means investing in infrastructure, holding municipalities accountable, and empowering local governments with the resources to serve their communities effectively. Rapid response teams must address emergencies, and special focus must be given to rural areas where millions still lack basic services. The people of South Africa deserve real solutions, not more broken promises. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. We now move on to the next member to debate, and that is the Honourable Motara, the MEC for Human Settlements and Gauteng. Honourable Member, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson of the NCOP, esteemed members of the National Council of Provinces, members of the media, distinguished guests and fellow South Africans. Today we gather to commemorate Human Rights Day under the theme Enhancing Social Justice and Human Rights Culture. This theme resonates deeply in our current epoch, where the fight for dignity, equality and justice continues to be paramount. As we reflect on our past, we must also embrace the responsibilities of the present and future. Enhancing social justice and human rights culture invites us to examine the very fabric of our society. Social justice is not merely about the distribution of resources. It encompasses the equitable treatment of all individuals, ensuring that everyone has a voice and the opportunity to thrive. A culture of human rights means embedding respect for human dignity in our daily lives and policies. It challenges us to be vigilant against injustices and proactive in fostering an environment where rights are not just recognized, but celebrated. In today's context, we see the urgency of this theme as we grapple with issues like gender-based violence, economic disparities, and systemic discrimination. These challenges demand a renewed commitment to the principles of human rights and social justice. It is our duty to ensure that every South African, regardless of gender, race, or socioeconomic status, can live a life free from oppression. A post-democratic South Africa still boasts the most unequal society in the world, but I stand here before you as a testament to what is possible in a modern world where inclusion is made possible. On March the 21st, 1960, the events at Sharpeville became a pivotal moment in our nation's history and a catalyst for international awareness of apartheid atrocities. Thousands gathered in peaceful protest against the past laws that enforced racial segregation and limited the freedom of movement for Black South Africans. They sought justice, dignity, and the right to be treated as equals. As the crowd peacefully assembled, police opened fire, killing 69 people and injuring over 180. This massacre was not an isolated incident. It epitomized the brutal enforcement of apartheid and the lengths to which the state would go to suppress dissent. It galvanized global condemnation, leading the United Nations to declare apartheid a crime against humanity. Domestically, it spurred the African National Congress and the Pan-African Congress to adopt armed resistance after their banning. Today, we commemorate Sharpeville not only to mourn, but to recognize how oppression fuels resistance. This day reminds us that human rights are won through courage and collective action. Commemorating Human Rights Day is vital for several reasons. First, it honors the memory of those who lost their lives at Sharpeville and acknowledges the sacrifices made in the struggle for freedom. Their bravery reminds us that the fight for human rights often comes at a high cost. Moreover, this day serves as a powerful reminder of our collective responsibility to protect and promote human rights. We must reflect on the progress we have made since 1994, while also recognizing the work that lies ahead. Commemoration is not just about remembrance, it is about action. It is about ensuring that the principles of justice and equality are not merely enshrined in our constitution, but are lived realities for all South Africans. It is also essential to highlight the crucial role women played in our liberation struggle. Women like Lillian Ngoyi, Fatima Meer, Helen Joseph, and Sophie Williams de Bruyn were not just participants, they were leaders who inspired generations. Their courage and resilience in the face of patriarchal oppression were instrumental in shaping our fight for freedom. Their legacy challenges us to confront ongoing gender inequities. As the fearless Fatima Meer proclaimed, and I quote, "The fight for freedom is not a fight for glory. It is a fight for the right to live with dignity," close quote. These words remind us that true freedom includes economic empowerment, safety, and equal representation. Furthermore, Lillian Ngoyi famously said, and I quote, "We are not born to be slaves. We are born to be free," close quote. This powerful statement encapsulates the spirit of our struggle and the relentless pursuit of justice. Women in South Africa have always been at the forefront, challenging the status quo and advocating for the rights of the marginalized. In conclusion, as we commemorate Human Rights Day, let us reaffirm our commitment to enhancing social justice and cultivating a robust culture of human rights in South Africa. Let us honor the legacy of those who fought bravely at Sharpeville and continuously strive for a society where every individual's rights are respected and protected. Together, let us forge a path toward a future where freedom, equality, and justice are not just ideals, but lived realities for all. May we stand united in the pursuit of a just society, ensuring that the lessons of our past guide our actions today and in the years to come. In the spirit of those who marched, resisted, and dreamed, we must act. Together, we can ensure their sacrifices were not in vain. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. We now move on to the next Honourable Member, and that is the Honourable Du Plessis from the Democratic Alliance. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Chair, Honourable MECs and members. As humanity, we need checks and balances. One only needs to pick up a history book to see that any part of the world needs people in power with some sort of moral direction or accountability. Unbridled power has resulted in some of the most hair-raising human rights abuses. It is not without reason that Lord Acton said, "Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." Throughout the ages, there have been many moments where humanity collectively felt the shame of what happens when those in power abuse rather than serve. In most recent world history, we have entrusted the United Nations to guide us on the definition of social justice and the gold standard for human rights. They have encapsulated social justice as working towards a fair and equitable society with equal rights, opportunities, and treatment that aim to address systemic inequalities. Social justice is inseparable from human rights. Locally, human rights are protected within the Bill of Rights. However, without government action and legislation implementing and protecting these, the words become empty promises that fade away between the minutes of lives lived in daily struggle, thus losing the reason that these rights were fought for. And as a reminder, it was for social justice in a country that was marred by a lack of accountability, abuse of power, inequality, hatred, injustice, hopelessness, pain, and hunger. Human rights do not automatically happen from having them in a document, and they definitely do not deserve to be used as a smokescreen to keep accountability out. Neither does the need for them exist to place people in power who see human rights for themselves alone and as their time to eat. When the battle for human rights is misused in this fashion by an elite few in positions of power, whether in business or in the public sector, we will not and cannot obtain social justice. Neither in South Africa nor in many of the war-torn nations of this world. I recently spent some time with residents of Coronationville and New Clare. This area, as with many in Johannesburg, is in the middle of a water crisis. The water crisis is not as a result of lack of rain. The Fall Dam is at 103%. It is not a new crisis. It is an ever-increasing emergency that not only removes people's dignity, it leads to preventable diseases and potential death. This crisis did not happen because there wasn't money. It happened because the city failed to use their resources to correctly plan, maintain, and build. This basic human right was not protected. And we can see it in the queues of the vulnerable who stand with buckets waiting for a few liters of water for longer or over 80 years. In this, there is no justice, social or otherwise. Last week in Thembelihle, Ward 8, Johannesburg, we needed to fight for the safety of residents against illegal land invaders who were allegedly politically protected by the ward councillor. Fear spilled into the surrounding wards, resulting in residents spewing anger and hatred, destroying social cohesion with tribal and racial tensions intensifying. It took us 2 days of continual pressure to get an impactful response from the city, further supporting the allegation of political protection by those in position of power in region, city, and province. The housing crisis has become endemic and violent, yet it could have been prevented. There is no social justice in this. On the 22nd of December 2024, in Waterwax, Johannesburg, a community that has in most ways been forgotten, a combi drove in and randomly fired on the shacks, killing 3 people and injuring almost 30. Nothing has been done to investigate this loss of life. What justice is to be found here? Human rights are predicated on the ideas, policies, and precepts that we as evolved humans have developed for the protection of all people. We can agree that we live in a more just society. However, when we are truly honest, it is obvious that human rights have not been implemented or protected throughout our society. We are able to walk towards an inclusive society, a more tolerant society, a safer society, a society where human dignity is found through good, honorable governance. This is a socially just society. It sounds easy, but it takes bravery, because it can only be done through real accountability when people in positions of power respect the necessary checks and balances that protect all peoples, and when these people have a little bit more empathy for the lived experience on the ground. We can realize what we dreamed about in South Africa. I thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Honourable Du Plessis. Good afternoon, honourable members. We now pass the opportunity to the Honourable Sekwakwa from Mpumalanga Province. Honourable Sekwakwa.
Honourable Deputy Chair, honourable members of the NCOP, invited guests, all protocol observed. On behalf of the African National Congress, I greet you all. On Human Rights Day, we remember the 69 souls that were lost their lives under the brutal apartheid government in Sharpeville. The people were marching against the then passed laws that were discriminating against Black Blacks, and non-whites. And an ANC-led government subscribed to the fundamental values of the human rights as enshrined in Chapter 2 of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Every person's rights must be protected, must be respected and protected by the law, be it the right to dignity, to participate, a culture or religious, to march or demonstrate peacefully, to a right to education, or to be treated equal before the law, and etc. Honorable Deputy Chair, basic human rights are still not being respected, especially in rural areas and white-owned farms. The same goes with the respect of certain race groups in society. So far, an ANC-led government has made significant progress in realizing human rights and protection of culture. We have the Human Rights Commission that focuses on the abuse of human rights. We have established an effective equality court to arbitrate on issues revolving around any infringement of human rights. Honorable Deputy Chair, in order to enhance social justice and human rights culture, we need to advocate for the following: regular contact workshop on being equal before the law, what it means to be being fairly discriminated on basic gender and race, promote equal access to basic services like education, healthcare, and social welfare, the right of access to legal aid wholly paid by the state through the Legal Aid Board. The South Africa is systematically an equal society. Therefore, we are facing significant challenges relating to the poverty, inequality, and historic injustice, which requires targeted intervention and policies. Honorable Deputy Chair, we are signatory to various human rights conventions. It is crucial that the commitment are upheld and translated in the policies and practices. It is unfortunate that our effort in addressing injustice of the past and the abuse of human rights is always facing resistance from non-progressive forces. Some even crawl to their father Christmas, the USA, to divide our country and spread lies about our policies and legislation. Honorable Deputy Chair, as I close, we will not be derailed as we remain committed to pass and enact policies and legislations that are addressing the past inequalities and promote economic opportunities for marginalized groups. To enhance social justice and human rights culture, we are carefully initiated the following: land reform laws, the National Health Insurance, the Bella Act, strengthen the law enforcement agencies on human rights, combating corruption as it undermines the social justice and human rights. We foster dialogue and reconciliation between different groups in society in order to build a more just and inclusive society. I thank you, Honorable Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much for representing your province of Mpumalanga, Mr. Sekwakwa. We will now move on to KwaZulu-Natal. The MEC for Arts, Culture and Sport is the Honorable Kawula. Honorable Kawula has the next opportunity at the microphone. Honorable Kawula.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable members of the NCOP, ladies and gentlemen, I greet you. Today, as we gather to reflect on the essence of Human Rights Day in South Africa, we stand on sacred ground. This sacred ground and fertile ground was enriched by blood, sweat, and tears of those who took upon themselves to fight for the basic human rights we enjoy today. It took a crop of extraordinary men and women to stand against the injustices brought upon the majority of South Africans who were marginalized because of race, color, and political conviction, by those who perceived their right to life, to dignity, to choice, education, political association, access to the means of production, to be greater as compared to those who had a darker skin. The 21st of March serves as a solemn reminder of the sacrifices made by countless individuals who dared to challenge the status quo and fight against the abhorrent injustices of the apartheid regime. The history of Human Rights Day is intrinsically linked to the courageous souls who marched in Sharpeville in 1960. Their peaceful protest against the past laws became a defining moment in our struggle for freedom. On that fateful day, while facing the barrel of the gun, their voices echoed the deep-seated yearning for equality, justice, and human dignity. As the provincial government of KwaZulu-Natal, we acknowledge the role played by the Pan-African Congress in organizing these protests in 1960. It is, however, worth noting that these struggles were all-encompassing and impacted across party political lines. It was a clarion call that transcended political boundaries, bringing together men and women of goodwill across many spectrums, young and old, from diverse backgrounds, in a collective demand for justice. This spirit of unity is an important reminder of our responsibility today, to continue to work together, irrespective of our differences. It is no coincidence, but a deliberate move by PLENARY, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, that the Inkatha Inkululeko Yesizwe, today known as the Inkatha Freedom Party, was founded on this day of the 21st of March 1975 at the church mission in KwaZulu in Melbourne, KwaZulu-Natal. This coming Friday, Chairperson, at the very same mission, the IFP will be celebrating its 50th anniversary. The government of the provincial unit of KwaZulu-Natal will then hold its commemoration of the 2025 Human Rights Day in Durban at the Olive Convention Center on Saturday, the 22nd of March 2025. The government of provincial unity in KwaZulu-Natal, under the leadership of Premier 18 Duli, is determined to close the gap between the previously disadvantaged and the previously advantaged citizens of our province, economically and otherwise. The Office of the Premier has allocated 200 million rands in the financial year 2024-25 dedicated to assisting women-led businesses of our province in order to uplift them economically and create the much-needed jobs. In the same vein, in the 2024-25 financial year, the Office of the Premier has allocated 100 million rand for the youth-established businesses for the same purpose. Our province has recently unveiled 87 billion rand worth of investment by the private sector in order to accelerate job creation initiatives in the province. Chairperson, it is on the same vein that the government of national unity, as mandated by the electorate, has risen above political differences and formed this beautiful phenomenon called the GNU and GPU in our province, with the aim of putting the needs of our South Africans first, above and beyond any political interests. Hence, our clarion call, as espoused by the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Honorable 18 Duli, of inspiring new hope for our people. It is the hope that has to be backed by tangible improvements in their lives, socially and economically. Human Rights Day is not merely a commemoration. It is a call to action. It implores us to uphold the values of dignity, equality, and respect. As we navigate the complexities of our present and future, we must never lose sight of the sacrifices made by those who came before us. Their legacy demands that we continue to champion the cause of social justice and human rights in every facet of our society. As a province of KwaZulu-Natal and the Zulu Nation, we stand on the great shoulders of freedom fighters ranging from the mighty King Shaka Sendakakona right down to King Tetshwao Kampande and the other Zulu kings who fought fervently and courageously for the protection of the rights of their people against colonial expression. King Tetshwao Kampande made history by becoming the first ever African leader to defeat the mighty British Army in the African soil at the Battle of Isandlwana on the 22nd of January, 1879. Today, the reigning Zulu King, His Majesty King Mswati, is an activist leader in the fight against women and children abused in the province. Chairperson, I am tempted to borrow from the words of the founder and president emeritus of the IFP, the late Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, who actually challenges us to take a broader look at human rights beyond political rhetoric, and I quote, We cannot take another view of human rights. They are not merely political, but are also social, economic, and cultural, and may vest in an individual or a group. Every right counts, and every right comes with an equal responsibility, close quote. Umntwana owaphilayo continues to succinctly hammer the responsibility to respect other people's rights that weigh on every one of us. And he says, the quote, it is easy to demand that our rights be respected, but the real test of character is respecting the rights of others and standing up for the rights of all, close quote. Each of you honorable members holds the aspirations of the masses. You have an integral part to play in fostering a culture that enhances social justice and human rights. It is imperative that we harness the power of legislation to dismantle systems of poverty, unemployment, inequality, and discrimination. We must ensure that our institutions are not merely bastions of authority, but champions of the marginalized and the oppressed. Our commitment to social justice must be reflected in policies that promote equitable access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities. We must work tirelessly to address the socio-economic disparities that continue to plague our communities. Initiatives that support most vulnerable amongst us, women, children, and people living with disabilities must be prioritized. In so doing, we honor the spirit of those who marched at Sharpeville and beyond, who envisioned a society where every person has a stake in our nation's success. Moreover, it is our collective responsibility to educate future generations about the significance of human rights. We must empower our youth with the knowledge of their rights and the tools to advocate for themselves and others. Together, we can cultivate a culture of respect and understanding, ensuring that the lessons of our past do not fade into oblivion. As the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, we are leading the pack from the front in restoring human dignity through our intensified talent identification and development model. As a political head of the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture in KwaZulu-Natal, it is my portfolio's crucial role and endeavor to achieve a winning and socially cohesive KwaZulu-Natal through the creation of a just, free, and equal society. KwaZulu-Natal government of provincial unity advocates for the recognition of the importance of sport, arts, and culture in enhancing social justice and human rights culture. We are working hard towards achieving a transformed and balanced representation in sport, in arts, and other areas in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. How I wish for this justice to be reflected also in the funding that we receive from the fiscals. Ladies and gentlemen, let us carry forward with the torch of justice led by our forebearers. Let us pledge to be vigilant custodians of human rights and social justice, not just on Human Rights Day, but every day. May we stand united in our quest for a society that is truly free, democratic, and progressive, reflecting the ideals we hold dear. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much indeed, Honourable Kawula. Honourable members, it is a pity Honourable Modise is not here today, because the next speaker that we welcome to the podium is the Honourable Noko Masipa, who is representing the Western Cape Legislature.
I'm here, Chair. I'm here. I might not be in the house, but I'm here.
House Chairperson, honorable members, Jean Dominique, the Haitian democracy activist, once said, "You cannot kill the truth, you cannot kill justice, you cannot kill what we are fighting for," quote unquote. These words resonate deeply today as we reflect on the state of human rights in South Africa. But this is not just a day of reflection, it is a call to action. The Democratic Alliance is in the government of national unity, not to rubber stamp the ANC's destructive economic policies, but to fight for policies that restore dignity and opportunity for all South Africans. Honorable House Chair, let's ignore Honorable Mananiso's selective amnesia. For decades, South Africans had hope. They were given hope by the ANC. Hope for jobs, freedom, dignity, clean water, and a better life. But today, that hope has turned into despair for millions of South Africans. Young South Africans are left jobless. Businesses are strangled by red tape and corruption. And Honorable Mananiso, even in your city like Johannesburg, under Honorable Premier Lesufi, the most basic right, access to water, is being denied. South Africa's promise of human dignity has been stolen by a corrupt elite who have turned our democracy into a feeding trough for the connected few, while the majority struggle just to survive. The 9 wasted years were under the ANC government. It is still fresh in our minds. House Chairperson, let me also help Honorable Fanny. For 30 years, the ANC has waged a silent war against jobs, economic prosperity. Instead of policies that uplift, we have seen the PEE that enriches the few while leaving millions jobless. Land expropriation without compensation that could destroy investors' confidence. The National Health Insurance Scheme, which we simply cannot afford and give us worse coverage. And now a proposed VAT increase that will cripple households and businesses. The hard truth is that the ANC is not failing by incident. It is failing by design. Its policies are rooted in outdated Marxist ideology, serving only those with political connections while driving our economy into the ground. House Chairperson, take land expropriation without compensation. This policy is not about justice. It is about power. Zimbabwe's tragic loss, history is a warning. Between 2000 and 2011, the Zimbabwe economy collapsed. Inflation soared to 231 million%, and unemployment surpassed 90%. Why? Because Mugabe's land grabs destroyed investor confidence and led to mass food insecurity. The ANC is following the same path. Investors are hesitant, farmers are uncertain, and economic growth is stagnating. House Chairperson, yet instead of learning from the failures of Zimbabwe, the ANC is doubling down, choosing radical policies over practical solutions that could create jobs and build prosperity. Now, the ANC, not the GNU, wants to raise VAT, an attack on the poor and working class. This is not just an economic adjustment. It is a direct assault on human rights. The South African Reserve Bank found that 1% VAT hike results in a 0.7% decline in consumer spending and a 0.5% increase in inflation. The VAT increases by 1% or 2%. This economic strain will double or triple, further shrinking the economy. The government hopes to raise 28 billion rands, but at what cost? The economic fallout will erase more wealth than it generates, Honorable House Chair. In a country where household consumption drives more than 60% of the GDP, even a small decline in spending could trigger a major recession, costing more jobs, closing businesses, and making life even harder for the millions who are already struggling. The Democratic Alliance believes in the solutions that create jobs, not kill them. That is why we reject destructive ANC policies like expropriation of land without compensation, the BEE, and the VAT hike. Instead, we are proposing a pro-growth tax policy that expands the economy rather than squeezing it, scrapping the BEE in favor of a merit-based empowerment system and economic justice that creates real opportunities. A growth-focused land reform strategy that encourages investment and not economic flight. Investment-friendly policies that attract businesses, create jobs, and boost economic confidence. The Western Cape stands as a proof that a different path is possible. Under the DA governance, it has the lowest unemployment rate in South Africa, under 20% compared to the national, which is over 30%. at the moment. The Western Cape's growth for jobs strategy is working, proving that when policies are focused on innovation, investment, research, enterprise, and real economic change do happen. Human rights are more than just words. Honorable members and House Chair, on this human rights, we must be clear. Human rights are not just political speeches, House Chair. Human rights are not just empty promises. Human rights mean access to food, jobs, clean water, and dignity. The ANC has failed to uphold these rights. Their policies have deepened inequalities, expanded poverty, crushed economic opportunities. It is time for South Africans to stand up and demand real change. As I'm about to step down, Honorable Chair, I leave South Africans watching this debate with the lyrics of Bob Marley, who said, "Get up, stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up, and don't give up the fight." As we approach the 2026 local government elections, the Democratic Alliance call on every South African to reject the failed policies of the ANC and fight to put a government that delivers the real human rights, the real dignity for all. South Africa is worth fighting for. We cannot allow the ANC to destroy this country any further and diminish our human rights without a fight. The time for action is now. Let us fight for jobs. Let's fight for freedom. Let's fight for South Africa. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Masipa. Honorable Nonkonyana, I'm not sure if you're on a device as well, but it's not muted. If there's somebody else with a similar name to, I'm just seeing Nonyan on the screen. Please make sure your device is muted. We are picking up some disturbance in the House. Thanks again, Honorable Masipa. Let's now move to the Limpopo Deputy Chair of Chairs, the Honorable Ngobeni. Honorable Ngobeni.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair, Chief Whip in absentia, and members of the WIPARI, members of the NCOP, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome the important opportunity to participate in the debate in this August House. This rare privilege was made possible by the sacrifices made by our gallant forebears, who put their lives on the line for the total liberation of our people. Honorable Deputy Chair, this snap debate comes a few days before the country commemorates the Human Rights Day. On this day, we are reminded of the selfless sacrifices made by countless individuals who unceasingly fought for the freedom and democracy we enjoy today. This day is not merely a celebration, but a solemn reminder of the struggles that have shaped our national liberation discourse, particularly and especially the Sharpeville massacre of 1960, where 69 peaceful protesters were brutally killed by the apartheid regime. Their bloodshed on the soil of Sharpeville became the seed of our democracy and a beacon for the global human rights movement. While there are a greater appreciation of many significant strides we have made in protecting human rights since the end of apartheid, there are still challenges that affect the full realization of rights for all South Africans. The country's constitutional framework, particularly the Constitution, enshrines a broad range of human rights. As we reflect on this day, we must ask ourselves few questions. How far have we come in realizing the ideals of human rights, both at home and abroad? How do we honor the legacy of Sharpeville in the world plagued by inequality, injustice, and the erosion of human dignity? The Sharpeville massacre was a turning point in our history. It exposed the brutality of apartheid to the world and galvanized international support for the anti-apartheid movement It also reminded us that human rights are not given, are not for free. They are fought for, often at great cost. Today, Honorable Deputy Chair, we honored the martyrs of Sharpeville by reaffirming our commitment to the principles of equality, justice, human dignity as enshrined in our Constitution. However, the legacy of Sharpeville also compels us to confront the challenges that remain. While we have made significant progress since 1994, the scars of apartheid persist in the form of poverty, inequality, and social exclusion. These are not just economic issues. These are human rights issues. As President Cyril Ramaphosa aptly stated, and I quote, "The struggle for human rights does not end with political freedom. It extends to economic freedom, social justice, and the right to live a life of dignity," close quote. Until we successfully deliver basic services to our people, then the idea for human rights will not be fully realized. Honorable Deputy Chair, the people of Seshego deserves constant potable water. The people of Mapela and Mogalakwena will appreciate human rights more if their access roads are tarred. Those in Shukundu deserve constant municipal services. These are some of the alterations we can effect to make the idea of human rights more concrete and more acceptable. In addressing these challenges, we are guided by both continental and national frameworks. Agenda 2063, the African Union's blueprint for continent development, envisions an Africa of good governance, democracy, and respect for human rights. It calls for the eradication of poverty, inequality, and exclusion, aligning closely with our own National Development Plan, the NDP. The NDP, Honorable Deputy Chair, our roadmap for 2030 emphasizes the importance of inclusive growth, social cohesion, the protection of human rights. It recognizes the sustainable development. That sustainable development cannot be achieved without addressing the structural inequalities that continue to marginalize millions of our people. As the African National Congress, we remain committed to implementing the NDP, ensuring that every South African has access to quality education, healthcare, housing, and economic opportunities. Honorable Deputy Chair, in South Africa, we have made significant strides in advancing human rights. Our constitution is widely regarded as one of the most progressive in the world, guaranteeing a wide range of civil, political, economic, and social rights. We have established institutions such as the South African Human Rights Commission to safeguard these rights and hold government accountable. Yet, challenges remain. Gender-based violence continues to plague our society, undermining the rights and dignity of women and children. The recent surge in femicide and sexual violence is a stark reminder that the fight for human rights is far from over. As President Ramaphosa declared, we cannot claim to be a free society when women and children live in fear. We must unite as a nation to end this scourge, close quote. Moreover, the persistence of poverty and inequality threatens the realization of socioeconomic rights. While we have expanded access to basic services, millions of our people still live in informal settlements without adequate housing, water, or sanitation. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated these inequalities, highlighting the urgent need for a more inclusive and equitable economy. This will be achieved by creating meaningful opportunities for millions of South Africans to participate in the mainstream economy. Honorable Deputy Chair and honorable members, as we address these challenges here at home, we must also look beyond our borders. South Africa has long been a champion of human rights on the global stage, advocating for the rights of the oppressed and marginalized. From From our support for the Palestinian cause to our role in promoting peace and stability in Africa, we have consistently and regularly stood on the side of justice and human dignity. However, the global human rights landscape is increasingly fraught with challenges. In this context, South Africa must continue to play a leading role in advancing the global human rights agenda without fear. To this end, I wish to take this opportunity, Honorable Deputy Chair, to quote an Irish poet, W.B. Yeats, in his poem entitled The Second Coming, when he said, and I quote, "Things fall apart, the center cannot hold, mere anarchy is loosed upon the world, the blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned, the best lack all conviction, while the West are full of passionate intensity," close quote. In this regard, we must never, as a country, lack all conviction. The government is also grappling with how to balance freedom of expression with the need to prevent hate speech and incitement to violence, including and especially in the context of racism, xenophobia, and homophobia. This is as a result of Afrikaner right-wing extremists like AfriForum and Solidarity Movement, who are threatening the sovereignty of our country and colluding with international forces to undermine our hard-won democracy. The best must never lack all conviction and allow the West to take charge of our lives. Honorable Deputy Chair and honorable members, our recent development that underscores the fragility of global solidarity is the decision by the...
We've got 20 seconds to go. Please wind up.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chair. In the words of President Ramaphosa, I quote, "Human rights are not just words on paper, they are the foundation of our democracy and the essence of our humanity. Let us work together to ensure these rights are realized for all, both here at home and abroad." Thank you for your kind attention, Honorable Deputy Chair and honorable members.
Thank you, Honorable Ngobeni, for representing Limpopo so well. The next member who's going to come to the podium is Honorable Farmer, delegate from the Western Cape.
Honorable Chairperson, honorable members and fellow South Africans, the Patriotic Alliance at its core is wishing for the dropping, scrapping, or erasing of the black in general and African in particular narrative, and have it replaced with all of us being referred to as South Africans. This bears reference to the following. Human rights in a South African context cannot be removed from racism, as our history proves. However, how society comprehends race and racism has changed, and with it, the psychological discourse as well. With the killing of George Floyd and the birth of Black Lives Matter on May 25, 2020, a bright spotlight was redirected to an uncomfortable reality that most of us already knew. Racism is still alive and well. Many white South Africans became complacent, however. This added spotlight brought a renewed interest in understanding racism. To combat racism, it's vital to recognize its effects and take steps to understand the factors that contribute to it. More knowledge is required about the psychology of racism, including historical perspectives and more current views on the individual and systemic nature of racism. The psychological understanding of racism has historically been focused on individual psychology. How racism is driven by the beliefs and behaviors of individual people. Today, some researchers are advocating for a cultural psychological approach, which views racism as ideas and practices embedded in culture, where individuals shape culture and culture shapes individuals. Race psychology theorized that there were brain differences between races and that intelligence tests and segregation were the answer. Later in 1954, American psychologist Gordon Allport argued in his book, The Nature of Prejudice, that people use categories to understand their world better and that racism was simply an artifact of that process. Whatever the history of the psychology of racism is, the actual history of racism is that white people have been and continue to be afforded benefits in society because of a system that was set up for their benefit. Racism is real, regardless of whether white people recognize or accept it. Early explanations of racism were often inherently racist. Modern views on racism don't simply focus on individual acts of racism, but also look at how racism is perpetuated at a societal and cultural level. Racism is directed at a particular racial group and is based on systems of power and oppression. Racism is often seen as being a problem with individual racial prejudice, but it is important to recognize that it is much more multifaceted and systemic. People commonly think of racism in terms of overt individual actions and ideologies, but it also exists within systems, organizations, and cultures. In this way, racism is embedded in the reality of everyday life. Since racism is part of daily life, cultural patterns and historical narratives amongst whites, it is often difficult for people to see how familiar and normalized ideas promote racialized views and behaviors. Racism isn't just about individuals demonstrating racial prejudice or engaging in direct acts of racial discrimination. It is often less immediately obvious and much more insidious, affecting institutions like the justice system, in which Black defendants regularly face harsher sentences than white defendants for the same crimes, for example. Decreases in overt expressions of racial bias might suggest that racial prejudice and therefore racism is less extreme today. However, many psychologists suggest that racial bias has gone underground, and they have mounted substantial evidence that it instead thrives in subtle forms. While most blatant individual demonstrations of racism are no longer tolerated or viewed as acceptable in mainstream society, our society's understanding of what is racist continues to evolve. To be honest, our institutions are not so far removed from the years of colonialism, slavery, and segregation, and racism is still ignored, condoned, or even actively supported in many facets of life. To better understand how racism operates, it is important to look beyond individual psychology to the systemic and cultural practices that continue to uphold racism in society today. Salute.
Thank you, Honorable Farmer. The next speaker on the platform is going to be Honorable Mukwele from Limpopo.
Thanks very much, House Chair, and greetings to, House Chair, and greetings to the Chairperson of the NCOP, the Acting Chief Whip, Honorable Mananiso, honorable members on those that are on the platform, fellow South Africans. House Chair, I greet you all in the name of the African National Congress, Umbuto Wabantu. As we gather here today, House Chair, we remember the countless men and women who were arrested, detained, and tortured for their activism. We remember leaders who lost their loved ones, their homes, and their livelihood in the fight for freedom. I want to remind this August House that it was Thomas Sankara who profoundly said, I quote, House Chair, while revolutionaries as individuals can be murdered, you cannot kill the ideas. These words resonate deeply as we reflect on the struggle for the freedom. Sankara's powerful message underscored the pivotal role that men and women have played and continue to play in the fight against oppression and the pursuit of equality. Even though many leaders were imprisoned, exiled, or silenced, the idea they championed for human rights and freedom could not be extinguished. Today, as we honor their memory, we must remember that the ideas they fought for, justice, equality, freedom, remain alive and are at the heart of the work we do here currently, House Chair. It is for this reason that I want to take a moment to reflect on the remarkable journey of our leaders in this country. Indeed, their struggles, their sacrifices, their triumphs have shaped our history, and their legacy continue to inspire us even today. We stand on the shoulder of the giants, and it is with a great humility that I speak on behalf of the African National Congress, which has been instructed with the responsibility to debate these issues in this August House. When we reflect on the current state of our nation, we must first acknowledge where we come from. The legacy of apartheid is not easily to erase. While we stand in this house today, it is crucial that we do not forget the evil eye legacy of apartheid that continue to cast a long shadow over our society. However, let me make it clear that we are not here to complain, Honorable House Chair, or lament about the difficult condition under which we continue to strive. We are here to carry the baton forward for a strong and resilient leaders who fought tirelessly against the colonialism and apartheid government. The people of our country in their majority have always placed their trust in the ANC to transform their material condition. Our transition to democracy in 1994 marked the beginning of the new era for human rights, and while challenges remain, significant progress has been made in the last 81 years, House Chair. We have made strides in key areas such as housing, water, social development, education, and health. This advancement reflects the ANC commitment to transforming society and realizing the democratic society, where every South African share in the country, wealth, and opportunity. Our commitment to human rights is enshrined in Freedom Charter, which boldly declares that all shall enjoy equal human rights. In pursuit of this vision, the ANC-led government had implemented various policies and programs aimed at promoting equality, dignity, and justice. For example, the ANC-led government has provided approximately 5.2 million houses, offering millions of South Africans access to decent housing that necessary denied for many under apartheid. Access to clean water, sanitation has become reality for millions. Through social grant, House Chair, we have made a significant stride in alleviating poverty, especially for the most vulnerable in our society. Under apartheid, social services were scarce for Black South Africans. Here you can agree with me, and deeply inequality was entrenched. Basic education is now a constitutional right, where that ensuring that all children, regardless of race, class, can learn and strive in an increasingly complex world. Sports, once racially segregated under apartheid, have now become a symbol of unity and pride. Honorable House Chair, our national motto, Unity in Diversity, emphasizes the importance of fostering social cohesion. Our country diversity, which is a rich mix of culture, languages, and histories, can either divide us or unite us. However, as the ANC, we have chosen to see our diversity as the source of strength and the agent needs of the people who have made it possible for us to move through this passage remains our guide, and we must realize that our commitment is to the people first. Former President Nelson Mandela affirmed mandate when he said, The Constitution is the living document. Our understanding of its requirements will and must adopt over the time, but the fundamental principles are and must be unchanging. Full understanding of how and why those principles were adopted will help us to ensure that we remain true to the solemn undertaking which we have made to each other and those who follow us. This sentiment encapsulates the essence of South African journey. The work we do today is built upon the foundation laid by those who came before us. Hence, we are bound by our commitment to uphold the Constitution and ensure its principle of justice, freedom, and equality guide us in the work we continue to do. House Chair, Chapter 9 institutions are vital to South African democracy framework, ensuring the protection of constitutional rights, particularly for vulnerable groups, independent from government. These institutions safeguard democracy, the rule of law, human rights. Bodies like Public Protector, Human Rights Commission, Commission for Gender Inequality, and Independent Electoral Commission play a crucial role in holding government accountable and protecting citizens' rights. They have been instrumental in exposing corruption, advocating for marginalized groups, and enhancing the rule of law. However, despite this advancement, gender-based violence and femicide continue to persevere an alarming issue in our country. South Africa has one of the highest rates of GBV in the world, while women and child bearing the brunt of this violence. GBVF not only constitute a violation of basic rights, but also deeply impact the social fabric of South African society, undermining progress made in other areas of human rights and equality. This crisis, House Chair, cannot be allowed to continue. Many community and non-governmental organizations are working tirelessly to combat GBVF. Chairperson, addressing this GBF requires a multifaceted approach, one that includes tackling the root cause of the violence, understanding its effects, and collaborating across various sectors of society to create lasting change. The implementation of National Strategic Plan on GBVF will reflect the value of constitution and democratic society the ANC envisions. We must continue to work together. We must continue to work together, government, civil society, and private sector to eradicate this scourge from our society and ensure the safety and dignity of all South Africans. As I approach my conclusion, House Chair, reflecting on the Freedom Charter in 2025 require a bold examination of how far we have come and how much further we need to go. This historic mission of building South Africa that belongs to all its people remain at the center of our collective efforts. Undeniably, economic transformation remains crucial. We need urgent action in redistribution, job creation, and the fostering of industry that can provide sustainable livelihood for all. We must continue to confront systematic issues such as gender inequality, youth unemployment, which continue to hinder the realization of our democratic ideals. This issue must remain at the forefront of national discourse if we are to ensure where every South Africa can prosper. The path ahead requires the steadfast commitment to the principle outlined in the Freedom Charter: equality, justice, and freedom for all. Our clarion call to the people of South Africa is to work together in unity to continue advancing our country as we reflect on the progress made over 31 years. We can see that while significant gains has been made in the human rights and social justice, much more remains to be done. Commemorating human rights is not merely about remembering the past, but about ensuring that the ideals, equality, justice, and freedom are upheld for generations to come. The ANC long-standing commitment to transforming South Africa into national democratic society is evident in the progress we have made. Education, sport development, and access to basic service have all played a pivotal role in this ongoing journey. But we must recognize that the work is far from over. We must remain steadfast to build a society that is truly fair and equal for all. House Chair, before I sit down, I was listening to the EFF. The EFF, they indicate very clear that it is the organization that is just about to perish, like any organization that came before, because they can't even elaborate what do they mean when they talk of human rights. I was also listening to the MKMP. I mean, I don't know how to call it because they even stole their name. Because if we talk of people that can even far away from talking about human rights, I want to refer to their leader who's leading them from the back, who doesn't want to come forward because he knows the time we have given him the opportunity is the first person, is the last person to talk about human rights, because he always undermines democracy, he always violates the constitution. So the MK, that one, I don't want to talk about them. Lastly, the Democratic Alliance. I heard you introducing Honorable Member Masipa. Initially, I thought that he's from Limpopo, but when I was listening to him, I said, no, this one is not from Limpopo. Because, you know, the Democratic Alliance, they are also the last people to talk about human rights. Because here in Western Cape, where they normally proud themselves that they are the good run government, if you can go at Khayelitsha, House Chair and honorable members, where all of us we pass when we go to the airport, you can see that that segregation that we fought against, the DA, they are still doing that. So I should think South Africans must not be fooled by the Democratic Alliance, Honorable House Chair. But with those few...
Let's pause it there. Honorable Masipa want to raise a point. Is it a point of order on what rule?
Yes, is member prepared to take a question?
Right. Honorable Mkwede, are you prepared to take a question?
No, unfortunately, I can, but I'm not ready to do that. If time allows.
All right.
House Chair, if time allows me, I'm ready to tackle each and every question.
We have a very limited time.
So unfortunately, I don't have time. So if I have time, Honorable Masipa, I'm ready to take any question that might arise. But House Chair, like as I was concluding to say, Democratic Alliance is a shame. We all know that the reason why currently they can't support the budget that we are presenting as an ANC-led government or as an ANC-led GNU is because of they don't want this government to implement the Bella Act. We know they don't want this government to implement the land appropriation, something that they will always call, they will always say they are pro-poor, but they will always be against the law that are pro-poor. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mkwede. The next delegate on the podium is Honorable Kosel from the Western Cape.
Honorable Chair, honorable members and fellow South Africans, today as we gather to commemorate Human Rights Day, we remember the sacrifices of those who fought for freedom, dignity, and equality. The adoption of our 1996 Constitution was a landmark moment in our history, a document that enshrined our basic human rights and promised a South Africa where all people, regardless of race, gender, or background would be treated with fairness and justice. But as we reflect on that promise, we must also recognize how it has been eroded. The dream of a democratic South Africa, governed with integrity and respect for the rule of law, has been undermined by the very party that once fought for liberation. For 30 years, the ANC has governed with impunity, disregarding the foundational principles of our Constitution and betraying the hopes of millions of South Africans. The Bill of Rights guarantees every South African dignity, security, freedom from violence, and access to basic services. Yet, under the ANC rule, these rights became empty words. Through corruption, incompetence, and the blatant abuse of power, the ANC has systematically deprived many South Africans of their fundamental freedoms. State capture stands as one of the darkest chapters in our democratic history. Led by figures like Jacob Zuma and enablers like Malusi Gigaba, who was recently elected as chair of a parliamentary oversight committee, billions were stolen from the people. Eskom was gutted, plunging homes and businesses into darkness. Transnet, SAA, and other state institutions became looting grounds for the politically connected, while millions suffered without jobs, education, or proper healthcare. Yes, I see you bowing your head in shame. Yet it was not just theft, it was lawlessness. The culture of impunity spread from government officers to the streets, where even those who swore to uphold the law abused their power. One of the most appalling examples was the incident involving the Deputy President Blue Light Brigade. We all saw the shocking footage. Innocent motorists dragged from their vehicles and brutalized by those who are meant to serve and protect. I think Honorable Finney used the word inhumane. Well, this was not just an isolated incident. It was a metaphor for how the ANC has governed over the past 30 years, with arrogance, with violence, and a complete disregard for the basic rights of our citizens. But South Africans did not forget. In the 2024 elections, the people made their voices heard, delivering a historic defeat to the ANC. After decades of corruption, crime, and mismanagement, the ruling party was stripped of its majority. This was not just a change in numbers. It was a rejection of a system that had failed to uphold the promises of the Constitution. If only the ANC would finally come to terms and bury their arrogance with those leaders who are constantly dragging them down and join us in governing for the people. Instead, just the other day, Honorable Mokwele, the ANC puffed out its chest and showed us just how out of touch it is with the reality of those people who they claim to represent. But a proposed 2% VAT hike for the most vulnerable in our society to pay for their mistakes was a slap in the face of hard-working South Africans. Clearly, the definition of social justice has changed since 1994. Or, Honorable Mananiso, has that also been sold to the Guptas? That is why our people chose democracy over dictatorship, accountability over corruption, and justice over impunity. But voting out a failed government is only the beginning. The road to recovery requires responsible, ethical leadership, something the ANC has proven incapable of providing. To rebuild... Yeah,
Hey, the honourable member, take a question.
I didn't bring enough crayons to draw the answer. To rebuild our country and fully allow our people to enjoy their hard-won rights, we need a government that truly serves the people. That is why a government of national unity with the DA as its anchor tenant is essential. The DA has long stood for the principles enshrined in our Constitution, respect for the rule of law, clean governance, and the protection and promotion of human rights. This new government is not about political convenience. Like we've seen from the opportunistic Patriotic Alliance, it is about restoring the integrity of our institutions and ensuring that every South African, regardless of background, has access to the rights promised in 1996. It's about building a future where government officials do not steal from the people, but serve them with honor and accountability. As we celebrate Human Rights Day, let us remember that the fight for justice did not end in 1994. It continues. And together, with ethical leadership and a renewed commitment to the Constitution, we will build a South Africa that truly belongs to all who live in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Gotzel. And then the next speaker on the podium is going to be Honorable Manani So, a delegate from Gauteng.
Oi, 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 esgapanyaza, oi, oi. Matate Jade.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm not sure why I have 5 minutes because I've left 5 minutes earlier on. Okay. Thank you, Chairperson. I'm disappointed by Honorable Masipa here. You are just close by, but you failed to note that I spoke on issues of water and electricity as something that needs to be attended. And I want to just guide you in future. When you want to say something or disagree with somebody, don't ever use anything that has to do with medical condition. When you are saying that I'm suffering from amnesia, you are attacking those who are suffering from amnesia. And please note, as a member of any house or legislation, never use such things. And I want to apologize because we know that in South Africa, we are having a challenge in terms of mental health. So those who are suffering from memory of loss, askis pepi motshwarele because nabata ho please the master. And number two, I want you to know that there's a song as well. I see that you like music. There's a song by Bob Marley, Redemption Song, that says that emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Whatever that you spoke here, it's a mental slavery because of you are not appreciating the fact that here in Western Cape, there are inequalities that needs to be attended. Instead, we are just obsessed by Honorable Lusufi, who's not even here.
All right, Honorable Manani So. On what are you raising, Honorable Masipa?
House Chair, can you ask the member on the podium to speak through you, Chair, not directly to me? Thank you.
Kya feta ke 325 second. I think okay the message when we are here, let's not speak other things. Chairperson, I want to remind this House that as much as we are excited about the arrangement of the GNU, all of us, we must always refer to the statement of intention. Just to remind you, it indicates that strengthening social cohesion, national building, and democratic participation, and undertaking common programs against racism, sexism, tribalism, and other forms of intolerances. It is part and parcel of our work in the 7th administration. In terms of foreign policy, it says that based on human rights, constitutionalism, the national interest, solidarity, peaceful resolution of conflicts to achieve the African Agenda 2063, South Africa, North-South and African cooperation, multilateralism, and a just, peaceful, and equitable world. So we strongly believe in this House that indeed we need to achieve a better Africa and a better world. And today, as we celebrate these human rights, we must not speak as if we're living in isolation. Parties commit to all-inclusive national dialogue processes, civil society, labor businesses, and other sectors to discuss this and other critical challenges facing the nation. The national dialogue process will seek to develop a national social compact that enables the country to meet its aspirations of the National Development Plan. I thought all of us here, or some of us, were going to speak to say, as we go to this national dialogue, what are the issues that we need to speak about in terms of addressing human rights? And I want to employ to all of us that we are here, that in South Africa, we believe in diversity and different cultures, and we can still find each other, honorable members, to ensure that we create a better life for all, not for the few. I want to say, Honorable Chair, hashtag representation matters, hashtag no to sex for marks, hashtag no to sex for job opportunities. And again, we can all live together in South Africa, and we are all charged to build a better country for all, better life for all. It's not a slogan, but we can all work together to ensure that we are achieving this. As I conclude, Chairperson, we can attest from the report and answers from Honorable Motswaledi and Honorable Kwahube just this week, when one Honorable Kwahube was saying that fact is that teaching and learning is better done when using mother tongue. So as I said when I started, let us fashionalize using indigenous language as we do our work, number one. But lastly, we are empowered that at South Africa, we are capable to actually deal with health, primary health care, and we believe that it's human rights. Aluta continua, the struggle continue, and we believe that our girls and women need to live in safe space and enjoy safer communities. If I did, one disruptor we do.
Party at the party.
All right, honorable delegates, I would like to thank the permanent delegates, MECs, and all special delegates and SAGA representatives for availing themselves for the sitting. Honorable delegates, that concludes the business of the day and the House is adjourned. Bye, thank you, Nyabonga.
Siyabonga, Salo. Siyabonga.
Thank you, Scalo.
Recording stopped.